Here we are.
Hey, we are live. What is happening, everybody?
Man, what a day. What a day.
Yes, a lot of pretty newsworthy, eventful day in the world of professional wrestling. Actually, weekend, I guess you could say, started Saturday night with some local news about Nick Wayne,
Mhm.
which we will get to that into a second. But for those of you that are Flex Network fans, I'm Lawrence. That's Logan. This is the People's L Pod. We're doing some wrestling talk, so follow us
Yeah,
on Twitter. You can see it right over there, somewhere wherever my hand is.
there you go.
At People's L Pod or at People's Pod. I'm the LP train right there. We're gonna talk some NXT Vengeance Day. We're gonna get into the huge news of the day about Cody leaving AEW. We got to talk about a possible WrestleMania return for the Rattlesnake, and then, like I said, we'll talk some Nick Wayne. But first, let's get into this NXT Vengeance Day. Logan, what did you think about the show before we kind of dive into some of the matches here?
I thought the show in overall was good. I like how NXT is bringing back some of these old pay-per-view themes and kind of dusting them off and using them that are just kind of there. I like when they do these specials, non, I guess, premium, whatever they're calling them, not pay-per-views, but premium live shows. I thought the show was really good. They highlighted, some people that I think they needed to, but I also think it kind of highlighted some people that maybe it's time for them to kind of shit or get off the pot, so to speak, with them. Like, there's some people that maybe can start doing some things on Raw and SmackDown a little bit.
Talking about Dolph Ziggler?
I actually think Dolph Ziggler should be down there. But, there's a few
Yes.
people that are just, I think their time in NXT 2.0 has run its course.
Yeah, well, let's get started, man. On that very first match, there was a cage match. I believe they called it a weaponized steel cage match, which was Pete Dunne taking on Tony D'Angelo. I missed the beginning of this match. I was traveling back home, but man, a pretty good cage match. And
yeah,
Tony D'Angelo has had less than 10 matches on TV.
No, I mean, I was surprised at how well he kind of held his own, especially that kind of match with someone like Pete Dunne. He looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, he is obviously the NXT fan base is behind him. He's a stud. He's going to go very far. I know a lot of people kind of hated on his gimmick when he very first started it, but it's working. It's working out well. Obviously, Pete Dunne, ring general, one of my favorites to watch. And they had the bitter end where it got kicked out of. He had to use two of those. Like, that's been a pretty protected finish.
Yeah,
For him, and he's taken very few losses. It seems like he might be moving on to the North American title picture next. But either way, good showing out of Tony D'Angelo from what I could see.
Yeah, really good showing. I like when they do things that are a little different. I like how they had Pete Dunne had his hands kind of zip tied behind his back, how they kind of worked that into a guillotine, and then Tony D having to cut his way out of it. Whenever you can throw things like that into, obviously cage matches have been done numerous times. When you can add that little bit of difference, I think it really stands out.
Agreed. Then after that, we had the NXT women's tag titles. They were on the line as Toxic Attraction. They took on, how do you say, is it Persia Pirata, I believe is how she says her name, and Indy Hartwell. Toxic Attraction, JC Jane and Gigi Dolan, they did retain. Pretty good match. I mean, all these women, they were pretty green and they were more kind of characters and not so much actual wrestlers the past year. But I thought a pretty good match, and I'm actually really high on JC Jane. I think of a lot of the younger women that they have, I think she's probably got the highest upside.
Yeah, I noticed, speaking of her specifically, especially when they're doing their entrances, she seemed to add a little bit more extra flair to it, which kind of drew your eye to her. So she's already kind of figuring that stuff out, which is good, especially when you're, out there with, a Mandy Rose and a Gigi Dolan. If you can get the eyes on you, you're doing something right. Yeah, the match was good. It's just one of those things where I feel like the overall women's tag storyline is more focused on Cora Jade and Raquel Gonzalez rather than Indy and Persia. So, it kind of felt like that match was just kind of a placeholder for what we're going to get in the future.
Right. Yeah. Well, they do have this women's Dusty Cup, which will be starting next week. And there was a big will they, won't they end up tagging between Cora Jade and Raquel Gonzalez. They are going to tag up in the tournament. We'll see who they end up facing. But they got to be the favorites going in to likely face Toxic Attraction.
Well, they're doing 5 o'clock workouts, 5 a.m. workouts, putting the work in.
Hey, you got to get up early when you live in Florida, right? So, and then after that, we had a North American title match with Cameron Grimes taking on Carmelo Hayes for the North American title. Now, we taped a whole prospect episode going into 2020 that never ended up coming out. But one of the people I said was like, this guy is going to be a stud. He was mostly wrestling in Beyond, and then also what's the one that's in like Rhode Island? Is it Limitless Wrestling out there? Yes. Carmelo Hayes was someone that I was like, dude, this guy is going to be a star. Obviously, that podcast never got released, but I mean, we saw it right here firsthand. I thought this was a banger of a match between him and Cameron Grimes, and bright future ahead for him for sure.
Yeah, some would say Carmelo Hayes is the next Randy Orton, right?
I did see where our friend Jack Farmer said the next Randy Orton. That's a lot of praise.
Yeah, but no, he is a guy that I think you could put him Raw and SmackDown right now across, have him across any name like a Seth Rollins or somebody, and I don't think he'd be out of place. And you kind of wonder, he's someone I want to see maybe take that next level in NXT. He's carrying the North American title, maybe put the actual NXT championship on him, let him get a run with that. And then let's see what he can do, under a bigger stage.
Yeah, I think we're actually kind of looking at a potential, this is probably a few months down the line, but a Shawn Michaels Diesel situation, because I think there's a lot of potential with Trick Williams as well. And I know a lot of his promos, he was kind of cutting early on that kind of seemed rambling, not like he was making a lot of sense, but he's really kind of turned his game up quite a bit. So, and then after we did see the tease of Carmelo Hayes and Pete Dunne, looks like that's where both of those guys are likely headed for Stand and Deliver.
Yeah, and that'll be an awesome match.
Definitely. All right, and then we had the finals of the men's Dusty Cup. We had MSK, the reigning Dusty Cup champions, taking on the Creed brothers, Julius and Brutus. I think that's what their names are, right? I don't know which one is which, but that's what their names are. And they were out there with Malcolm Bivens, who's just a national treasure. Love that guy. I love everything about him. But this match, it seemed a little, I don't know if they were like short on time, but I felt like it got cut before it needed to. But either way, the Creed brothers end up winning the Dusty Cup. What'd you think about this one?
I like, obviously I love MSK. I like the Creed brothers. I think they have something there. They're definitely still a little rough around the edges, but they have a special chemistry, that you can only get with the real brother connection. I think they're going to be special. I just hope we kind of take their time and really let them develop and build. But I think they could, really turn into something. The match itself, yeah, like you said, did feel a little, rushed there, but I mean, you had to think once this matchup happened, I think did you assume Creed brothers were going to walk away with this one?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, and they were already kind of feuding with Imperium, who are the tag champs. Like the winners get a tag title match. And we saw after this match that Imperium, including Walter, came out. So it was kind of clear that that's obviously where they were going. I shouldn't say Walter. Gunther. Yes, he even corrected the ring announcer there. And then the crowd then chanted Walter.
Such a weird name change. But MSK is one of those teams, some of those talents down there where I think they're probably ready to move on. I don't know how much else there is for them to do in NXT, especially if they want to start getting these younger tag teams, newer tag teams some light. Um, and I feel like they could just add so much to either a Raw or SmackDown, either of those tag divisions where we're kind of just seeing the same handful of tag teams going back and forth. You throw those guys on any show, I think it'll add a different dynamic.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't know what the point of MSK being in NXT any longer would do for them or for even the brand.
Mm-hmm.
Put these guys on Raw or SmackDown. Either way, you're going to get good matches, and you'll have tag teams that you're not so necessarily concerned about. Well, when are these guys going to break up so this guy can get a singles run or something like that?
Yeah, I mean the main roster seems littered with those kind of tag teams where it's just guys thrown together.
Yeah.
Get some real tag team. Them and the Grizzled Young Vets, both of those teams, get them up there.
Yeah, I would like to see that as well. Definitely. All right. Then we had our actually before the main event, we did have a promo from Ziggler in the back.
You sound like a robot.
Yes, he was talking about
Ciampa. You sound like a robot.
Oh, I sound like a robot?
Yeah.
I don't know. Barkley. That's my dog. Anyways. But, yeah, so anyways, we had Dolph Ziggler out there. He talked about Ciampa. It was very basic promo, just making fun of him living in Florida, working at the PC. And then we went to the match, which was Braun Breaker defending the NXT title against Santos Escobar. What did they say? It was 18 years to the day that Eddie Guerrero had won the WWE title. That was obviously a hero of his. Yes. And pretty good match, but I felt like this match got squeezed for time as well, it seemed like.
I
never really got to get that second gear.
Yeah, I texted you even like right before the match hadn't even started yet. It was about 9:50 my time. I was like, are we gonna get less than 10 minutes in this main event? But then I did remember it is Braun Breaker. I don't know if they really want him going super long yet. Because we talk about Tony D'Angelo, how inexperienced he is. Braun Breaker is not much more experienced either, and he's in a much bigger spotlight. But it did feel like, then they started adding all the extra stuff in. You could tell they were trying to get everything in, tell all the stories they wanted to. For a minute there, I thought Santos may walk away with it. I thought, maybe his time. I feel like he's been there in that position a number of times already, and they just haven't pulled the trigger. And it's just, he's one of the main guys I was thinking of when it's like, are we going to, do something with him in NXT, or is that his level there?
Yeah, he is definitely a guy that needs to be on Raw, SmackDown, whatever, out there, because they're not going to put the title on him, clearly. So yeah, there's nothing else for him to do down there. I mean, he helped to get those, the tag team over, but I think he's capable of much more. You could easily slide him right into that IC title picture with Damian Priest, or I guess he's the U.S. champion, but still, him and Sami Zayn, him and Shinsuke Nakamura, I think those would all be good matchups for him. And one thing that I know they've always tried to get like a Latin superstar over it. This guy speaks English, like perfect English too. Like, it would work, whatever route they chose to go. So I would like to see that. What do you think about this Ciampa Ziggler feud that's kind of been trying to steal the spotlight from those two? It started last week with that contract signing.
Yeah, I like Ziggler being down there. I never had a problem with whenever they had a guy who wasn't really doing much on Raw or SmackDown, sending him down to NXT to work with some different talents, especially someone like the caliber of a Dolph Ziggler. It gives me shades of like when Cesaro had that feud with Sami Zayn, when he had been up on the main roster a little bit and then went back to do a little bit of stuff in NXT. I think it just adds a little something, it gives them guys like Braun Breaker, someone to kind of learn from, gives Ciampa something to do that seems like it matters. And then Dolph Ziggler, gets to do something other than just, I don't know, whoever he's wrestling for the 100th time on SmackDown or something.
Yes. Well, overall, I thought that was a good show out of NXT, and all these people that gave up on NXT because they cut your favorite wrestler, or your favorite wrestler got promoted and they did nothing with him afterwards, or you're like, I don't know who any of these people are. I think you should be watching NXT. A lot of really good talent down there, and people that
Yeah.
you will see on Raw and SmackDown and headlining pay-per-views, because I think Braun's going to be something. I know you're a big Von Wagner guy. They got a lot of talent down there. So
Yeah, NXT 2.0 is good. Just give it a shot.
yes, and no more 205 Live. They announced now that NXT Next Level is taking over that. So it's kind of been that the last few months anyway, just NXT matches on 205, especially since they don't have a cruiserweight title anymore.
Yeah, it stopped making sense when they had guys that were like about 305 pounds on 205 Live. I was like, what are we still doing with this name?
It's 305 Live. So, but obviously, we got to talk the big news this morning. Waking up to find out that Cody and Brandy Rhodes are no longer with AEW. You saw that. What was your first thought when you saw that?
So I was in the gym when a friend of ours texted that news in our chat, and I was just like, what? And it was like, so he's been technically a free agent now for a while, right? But the statement that Tony Khan put out, I think, put a little different twist on it. And it was a shocker, man. I don't think if you gave me like 10 different opportunities to put money on who may be the first person to potentially jump, I don't know if I would ever came down on one of the founding four members.
Yeah. I was pretty stunned when I saw that. I was just like, wow. I read the kind of the excerpt of it, and then I actually read the statement, and I was like, wow, this guy's really gone. There was that whole story that came out. I believe it was Fightful put it out like right around the new year, that they were that Cody was a free agent and he was working on basically a handshake deal. And you're just kind of like, what? That doesn't really make any sense. And then he had that whole issue where he had lost he had won the TNT title, but then he had COVID. I don't know if he actually did or not, but where he was gone off of TV. So then they did that whole interim title thing. We're like, well, what is this? This makes no sense. And then he came back like a week later and then lost the title. And then I remember around Rumble time, there was a lot of people like, oh, maybe Cody will be in the Rumble. And I was like, that's not happening. And then they just set up this whole angle with Brandy and Paige Van Zandt. Yeah. So then you're like, oh, well, these guys are definitely sticking around. And no, they're gone. They're out of there. So weird.
Yeah, it's just like it kind of adds, for a long time now, there's been those stories circulating that the relationships between like Cody and the Bucks and Kenny Omega had started souring a little bit, and he was a little bit more distant. A big thing I've seen people talking about recently is how much more like credit Tony Khan has kind of taken on the whole, what AEW has been doing recently. It's become a lot more. We saw he took control of more of the creative, right? Anytime there's been big news happening, it's been him breaking it, and we've seen, Cody Rhodes definitely distance himself from being more the face of the business side of it. So who knows? I mean, apparently he wanted a lot of money, and they just weren't willing to give it to him, which is kind of crazy when you look at like he was one of the guys.
Yeah, yeah, it is kind of funny, but if you think about it, like it's definitely shocking, but at the same time, it's like at the end of the day, like I tweeted this out. I was like, if we're being honest with ourselves, it's really not a big loss. Like, what has Cody done like in the past year that anyone has been excited about? He had the terrible feud with QT Marshall. Then he had the thing with Anthony Ogogo, where he almost killed Anthony Ogogo's career before it really even got started. And then he was kind of feuding with Malachi Black, which it started off hot, but then it was like, hey, let me have this flaming tables match with Andrade for no reason.
Yeah.
And then he's like on TV talking about how he's not going to turn heel. And it's like, what? Like, what are you doing? And then the whole promo with Sammy, and it's just like, dude, like the past like year, he's essentially just wasted. When there was one point, I know we've talked about it several times, where it's like, if you had that Cody match on the pay-per-view, that was almost like a main event, and it's just been nothing. So I don't know. I think he was kind of booking his own stuff, and he started off well with that, and then they went to shit. Tony Khan was probably trying to tell him, "Hey, maybe you should do this, or someone else was," and he just wasn't buying it. And now we're at this point where it
Yeah.
just was better for them to go separate ways. So
Yeah.
now that we know that, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like I feel like we said a number of times, especially early to mid, point from where AEW started till now, you could almost tell you're like, okay, this is Cody Rhodes AEW, this is Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, booking this part of AEW, and everything felt so disjointed.
Yeah.
It has kind of smoothed out lately, once kind of Tony Khan has kind of seemed to take control of everything a little bit more. But yeah, you're right. His stuff still felt kind of that way. Like, okay, you can tell this is kind of what he wants to do. And then now we're going to get back into the regular show.
Right. Yeah. And as people would call it, the Cody verse, it just seemed like its own separate thing. So, well, now that we know he is leaving, is it a slam dunk that he's going to WWE? That's what all signs seems to point. But do you think that that's a lock?
I wouldn't say it's a lock, but I mean, what else? What else is he going to do? He's not going to bounce around the Indies again. He's already
there's
done
no
that.
list. I was disappointed we didn't see a list.
Yeah, I mean, he's already done that. He's not going to go to Impact. He's not going to do New Japan. So the only logical thing other than him starting his own thing, which apparently is what some corners of wrestling Twitter thinks he may do too. I mean, yeah. I mean, it seems like that's the next logical place for him to go back, is back to the WWE.
Yeah, I think he's WWE bound as well. I don't know if that's the right move for him because outside of when he initially shows up, after like a month or two, I don't really see it being much more than probably, like he may be at that main event level for the first couple months, but then after that, I think he will just kind of slowly slide back down to, kind of leveling out essentially, I would say. I would be excited by the possibility of him starting another promotion, but I mean, he got lucky once. I don't think he can quite do that again. And then what about Brandy? Like, what is she going to do? Because she can't wrestle.
No, and I don't think WWE is going to actually bring her in a position where she's actually wrestling and being taken seriously as a wrestler. But I mean, you would have to think. So if you just look in terms of people historically who left and then came back recently, Drew McIntyre did it. He's probably the best example of a guy who left, and came back at a point higher than what he left at and stock wise. And I would say Cody Rhodes is definitely a bigger deal than Drew McIntyre was while he was gone. So I don't know, especially at the money he's asking for or supposedly asking for, that if he did go to WWE, I'm just going to assume Cody Rhodes is smart business wise and didn't just sign, just any regular deal to go back. I'm pretty sure he's got some certain things in there. This is what he wants to do, this type of storyline, all that kind of stuff. This kind of this level of money. So I don't see him coming back and being any worse off than like what a Drew McIntyre is doing right now.
But dude, Drew had to go through a whole NXT run for whatever reason. And then once he got on to, I think it was Raw when he first came up, he was like the second to Ziggler and then the second to Shane before they finally let him kind of branch off onto his own. And then he won the Rumble and, had that title reign where he wrestled Randy 80 times and Lashley the other 30 times. And so, I mean, if he was able to reach that level of being the world champion, then go right ahead, Cody. I think you should do that. But I see him being a lot closer to John Morrison when he went back. And I mean, granted, he had that Bad Bunny match, but
I mean, do you think he would go back if that is kind of what they were pitching him, though?
Well, that's the thing, though. I mean, they could pitch him whatever they want, but once he signs the contract, what is he going to, I'm sure that was more was promised to John Morrison than feuding or just tagging with the Miz all the time.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I'm sure the Nets didn't expect to trade James Harden so quick after getting him either. So
Yeah,
a signed
exactly.
contract doesn't mean a whole lot in the world of sports these days.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I just, and he's said, oh, I don't want to be a heel, but what if Vince is like, I think you should be a heel?
Yeah, I think he would be too, going back. It only makes sense.
See, you think he would be a heel? I
Mhm.
don't know, man. I think initially when he first shows up, I think he's going to get such a reaction that I think people would. I mean, he could try to be a face. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it depends on what he goes. Is he going to cut one of those programs? Whenever people love to leave WWE, like, oh, they didn't see this in me. They gave up on me. He's going to cut one of those promos about AEW if he goes over there.
Well, they're definitely not going to let him just cut a 15-minute promo like he has in AEW. I don't think. I just don't know what you like, how you bring him back, what you start him with. I mean, there's a number of ways in my head I can think like, this would probably be pretty good if you do that, but we can do that with anybody. WWE. It doesn't mean that's the direction they're going to go. But outside of, I would start him off with a Roman or a Seth, one of those guys, and I think you have to start him at that level. See if he can do it there. If not, then move him down. But I think you have to at least, especially with the money they're going to be putting into him to bring him if he is coming, he's got to start main event.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't see them putting him right in there with Roman though. Maybe Seth. I could see that. I could maybe also see AJ Styles, but I think ultimately it's going to be him and the Miz, right?
Yeah. Well, how soon do you think we can see him? Because according to Dave Meltzer, he can start whenever he wants. Do we see him before Mania? Do they wait if that's the case?
I would wait till the Mania after Raw, but
Raw after
with
Mania?
Raw after Mania, but with the Elimination Chamber this weekend, I think the road to WrestleMania really gets going Monday night. So if you're going to bring him in for Mania, I think you got to bring him in either on Raw on Monday or SmackDown the following Friday.
Yeah,
if not, I would wait.
I heard someone say, if you do want to get him going from Mania and you don't want to give him, like, if you want to do Brock Roman, have maybe Seth win the Elimination Chamber and then Cody challenges Seth Rollins at Mania. That would be something that would be interesting.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think Seth is more likely than Roman for him. Even if he started after Mania, I still think that would be more likely for him. Just because I don't think that Vince is going to want to bring in someone from AEW. Have them be on the same level as his guy.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right.
And if that's the case, and then Cody's going to get buried right away. It's going to be like Sting and Triple H. If that were to be the case. We all know how that went. So, Speaking of Mania, there is reports floating out there that we may see the return of the Rattlesnake, Steve Austin. People are speculating possibly against Kevin Owens. But what do you think about that news?
I mean, it was certainly unexpected, and for about 12 hours, it was like the biggest, news story going. I know it's been talked about, but he's always been pretty quick to kind of shut those rumors down when they start. That he's not really interested in coming back for just one thing. He's happy being done. He's over it. But in Dallas, in that stadium, I can see them bringing him out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be awesome if they did. Obviously, Steve, he kind of. Sorry, my dog is down here just going crazy. He, he was the last time he wrestled at 2005 against like Jonathan Coachman.
It's been almost 19 years.
Oh, so yeah, so he hasn't wrestled at all, I guess, since WrestleMania 19. Yeah, that was in 2003. So wow. I would like to see him back. For some reason, I just got a feeling he's not going to have a match. Like he might have some type of confrontation where he hands out a couple stunners and drinks some beers with the crowd, but I just don't see the match. It's been so long, and like we said, man, basically like after Elimination Chamber, you got like 6 weeks. I mean, you got to get something hot, and
Yeah.
I don't think you could just instantly jump to the Steve Austin thing, but we'll see. I
Yeah.
know there was photos out there that he has a ring built at his ranch, so maybe he's been training since that time.
Yeah, I mean, I could see this kind of being one of the situations, they've done in the past where they'll kind of start something going on TV before it's finalized. Like just have Kevin Owens throw out some things to say about Texas. If it hits, it hits. If not, they'll pivot last second. We've seen them do that before. Even if we don't see if we don't see Austin until Mania, I think Kevin Owens is good enough to carry a story like that, kind of like AJ did with the Undertaker for a little bit, where you're not really sure what's going to happen. One person kind of carries it on TV weekly, and then Mania, we finally get Austin, big pop, that kind of thing. I don't think that's out of the realm. I also know Stone Cold has it.
Like if Steve couldn't go. Because they've done that, like you mentioned with the AJ thing. They also did that with John Cena, where Undertaker was never there, and Cena was.
He is another Texas guy. He is another Texas guy, so they could do that too. But who knows? I mean, Austin is a guy that when he used to do his podcast and he would have these projects that he was working on, he would kind of talk about how far in advance he would start getting ready, start getting in shape. So if he does already have a ring, it could be a good indicator.
Yeah. I know that photo was surfaced. He did it with High Spots. That's where he bought her. That's who built it for him. So we'll see. We'll obviously be talking about that in the coming weeks if it is headed that direction. But lastly, before we got out of here tonight, we do want to talk about the Big Defy show over the weekend. Mm-hmm. So Christopher Daniels, he defeated Nick Wayne and then was going to attack him. And then Darby Allin's music hits. He uses a skateboard, runs off Christopher Daniels, and he wasn't there to fight, but he was there to offer Nick Wayne a contract with AEW. I can't even believe this, man. Like, what a rise. Like, not even a year, really. I mean, granted, he was wrestling before the pandemic, but wasn't wrestling, often. But things came back over the summer, and this guy's getting a contract for a TV company.
Yeah, at 16, 17 years old. Wild. Like people are saying, he gets offered a TV contract Saturday, and Monday he's going back to school doing math, English, little history like homework.
Yeah, man, this is like unprecedented, really. Mm-hmm. It's awesome though. I mean,
yeah.
You could tell, obviously, the kid is passionate about the business, and he's so talented. Like, it's just unbelievable. Like, it's hard to kind of describe to people. I was trying to explain this to someone, and I'm like, maybe Freddie Adu. That's the only other teenager I could think that was like playing like pro sports.
Yeah, at that young of an age.
Right. So it's just, man, big ups to him.
Yeah.
I don't know when it's supposed to start. I saw he did tweet out that he did sign the contract. So I don't know if we'll be seeing him on TV, if we'll see him on Dark, if he's just kind of training or what. But
I mean, it's
unbelievable.
It's a hell of a move. But if you've seen, some of the names that he's worked just recently and the quality matches he's been able to have with, some people that you would say are TV level talents or are actually on TV, he hasn't looked out of place, with any of them. It's a good move. I mean, if you're AEW, why not? Why not take the shot and lock him up? Have him, so when he's actually ready, he can go full time. You have somebody there. They got an impressive, like stable of young talent that, they're set every stage, like next 5 years, next 10 years, next 15 years. If they keep people around, they're going to be in a good position.
Yeah, actually, I got a question for you. So you bring that up. 5 years from now, who do you think is the bigger star, Nick Wayne or Hook?
Oh man, that's a good question. I'm gonna go with Nick Wayne. I think.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Nick Wayne. I think he has a little bit more that he can offer.
Okay. Yeah. I could kind of see that too, because he seems like flashier, and I think that appeals to younger people. I mean, obviously people are gonna be like, oh, this guy's barely older than me, or he's the same age as me. But you're gonna have that, but you're also gonna have kids that are like 12. That's like, oh my gosh, if he's doing this, I can do this, and like they're gonna be fans of him.
Mhm.
And I think that will help him in the long run too. But at the same time, like Hook, obviously, I mean, the shred god. I mean, this guy's over like Rover.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but I mean, also too, like Daniel Garcia, like how old is he? He's only like 22 or something like that,
yeah.
isn't he?
Super young,
Yeah,
super
they
young.
really do have a loaded roster of young guys, young talents that we mentioned Cody. Obviously, he's a first defection, but who knows? I could see
Mhm.
Jericho going back to the Fed at some point, and just other
Yeah,
talents just kind of cycling in and out. These guys are very well prepared for what's
yeah.
coming up.
And the difference too between AEW and then say if like WWE were to sign Nick Wayne now is AEW uses their young guys, like their training is on TV. Um, I know Britt Baker mentioned it before. Her developmental was live on TV. She didn't have an NXT or developmental system to kind of learn. You're just thrown into it, and you have to adapt, or they move on. Um, WWE, who knows? He could sign with them, and we don't see him for another 5 years until he's ready. So I'm
Yeah, and by
kind of
the time we see
interested.
him, I was gonna say by the time we would see him, his name would be like Logan Jordan or something. I don't know.
No, nothing wrong with the name Logan, but
It was just the
um,
first name that popped in my head.
yeah, but yeah. So him going there is kind of makes. Are we going to see him? How soon do we see him on Dark? Elevation. Uh, does he get a TV match? Anytime soon? Like there's a lot of stuff. Very very interesting signing. And probably the first like, would this be kind of like wrestling's equivalent of like, because the only person I could think that signed a deal like that at a young age like that, like I know Teddy Hart was maybe 17, 18 when he signed with WWE, but that never panned out. um this is like the first like prodigy level like signing, like a Freddie Adu you mentioned, a real young kid getting signed to like a pro level.
Yeah. I remember hearing this was a while ago, so I don't know the exact, but there's only been like a couple of like, at least in WWE, like teenagers that were like on, like, and when I say teenagers, I'm talking like 18-year-olds,
Hmm.
19-year-olds, and that was like Jeff Hardy, what's his name, Kenny Dykstra, and I think Barbie Blank. I think those were the only people that were under 20. But
Hmm.
like I said, they were like 18 and 19. They weren't 16 or 17. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this really is, that's kind of the, as this business grows and evolves, like that's just what it is. It's like you got to get these guys at a younger age and get them kind of rolling. So,
Yeah, I do think
uh,
he's a special case. I don't know how many other 16-year-olds out there, could get this kind of thing. He is third generation's been training, probably since he could walk, with his dad, Buddy Wayne. So I do think he's a special case. I don't
right.
think we see another Nick Wayne, maybe, next 25, 30 years. Um,
Yeah, at least not an American. I don't think so. I
right.
know you hear about a lot of those people over in the UK that
Hmm.
start training at 13, 14, where they might be ready for something like that, but you don't really see that too often over here. So,
Hmm.
um, but so far everything he's done, I mean, it's deserved. Like if this guy were 20, like I don't think anyone would be saying anything about it. They'd be like, why isn't this guy signed?
Right.
So I think it's definitely deserved by him. And after he gets offered the contract, he then gets a huge match offered to him as Swerve says, hey, you're going to find out whose house this is. So
Yeah.
I will be at that show on the 26th. It's always been Swerve's Defy in the last, 6 months. Nick Wayne's kind of taken it over. So we're going to really find out whose Defy it is.
Yeah, that's gonna be a hell of a match. And what a night! Those Defy anniversary shows always deliver. Ending, Darby Allin coming out, Swerve coming out. Um, Jeez, man, what a time! What a time to not be in Washington still. I wish I was still around for those Defy shows, but
Yeah.
unreal.
I mean that crowd, man. Like I saw the video, man. I mean that place was packed. I
Yeah,
saw Ethan HD. He had tweeted out. Nick Wayne said, "Fuck a paper route. I'm going to sell out Washington Hall." And
and he did.
yeah, sure enough. So, and I'm sure I know the tickets were flying for Defy 50. If there were any tickets, I'm sure they're all gone now. So
Yeah,
uh, you missed out, people.
yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. We got a new episode dropping this week. We're going to do a little draft on there. Check out our last episode we had, Cal Jack. He's coming out to SOS next month, but tell some great stories about training some UFC fighters, maybe a champion. You should listen to that. He kind of talks to us about Breaking Ground. If you guys remember that show, that was awesome. And yeah, just a lot of cool stories on there. We got some other big guests coming up. Everything keeps growing. And
Yeah, Cal Jack laid down the challenge to someone who was at Defy.
Yes, he's been at the last
weekend.
two Defy shows. And
Yeah.
yes, hopefully someone that will be a guest on the show coming up soon as well. So see who Cal Jack's ideal blood sport opponent would be. So we will catch you next time on People's Elbow.